Okay, good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is a challenging time, unprecedented. We are navigating together through uncharted territory. This is a time when we would normally stand and band together as a community. However, this time we can't do so physically, so we are together virtually. Tonight, we are launching our Ramaz Alumni Virtual Campus to allow for that banding and standing together. This talk, together with other future videos, will be made available to our entire community. And what better way to start the conversation than with the words from Rabbi Lookstein, who has led and inspired many of us for so long. Tonight, Rabbi Lookstein will speak about the religious response to crisis. If you have any questions, you can submit them through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will try and address them at the conclusion of his talk. The only screen and audio that you will see this evening for the remainder will be Rabbi Lookstein. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. Rabbi Lookstein.
33 years ago, on January 2nd, 1987, Alan Brown, born and raised in KJ by Fran and the late Benji Brown, a past president of the congregation, and Alan, a cherished Ramaz alumnus who bleeds blue and gold. He was hit by a wave in South Florida just about on his 21st birthday. And in an instant, he became a quadriplegic. His entire life changed in a split second. As I saw it at the time, I considered it to be absolute natural evil. It was one of the most tragic moments in my rabbinic life that I had to confront such evil. When I got into the pulpit the following Shabbat to address a stunned congregation, which was dealing with how such a cruel blow could come to a young man whose Hebrew name is Tuvia, meaning good, and who was the essence of goodness, who volunteered immediately after his bar mitzvah to serve on the Chevra Kadisha of the congregation. I knew that everybody was asking the same question. Why? How could such a thing have happened to him? I also knew instinctively that this was the wrong question. Not because it wasn't justified, it was, but because there is no answer to why bad things happen to good people. As Rav Soloveitchik pointed out in an article published in the Torah Umada Journal, Volume 8, 1998-99, quote, "Evil does exist, and it is bad. The world in which we live is not free from deformities and inadequacies. People develop illness, suffer accidents, are in the wrong place at the wrong time. None of this makes sense, but it is a reality, and it is indisputable, and it must be faced honestly." I hadn't read the Rav's essay at the time, but I had studied with him long enough to have internalized the idea that he was expressing, that the question why was not the right question. The real question was not why, but what. What do we do now that we have to confront evil? On that Shabbat, I discussed with the congregation what we had to do to support Alan and the Brown family in the face of their struggle with evil. Little did I know that Alan was thinking the same thing. I only found it out when, a week later, the late Noam Shadovsky and I visited him in Miami in Jackson Memorial Hospital 1 week after his accident. And we found him in his hospital bed, not giving in to self-pity, not resigned to a life of functionless paralysis, not allowing terrible circumstances to control him, but rather asking himself, what can I do and how should I respond? And of course, the rest is history. Alan and his family have devoted the last 33 years to helping victims of spinal cord injury deal not with the question of why it happened to them, but with the question of what they can do. And he now is the poster person for the Christopher Reeve Foundation. How do I know that this is a religious response to evil? Because it comes right out of the Rav's essay on a halachic approach to suffering. I read that essay in the summer of 2001 as my sister, the late Natalie Friedman, was in the final stages of her 6.5-year battle with ovarian cancer. I was preparing to speak about the halachic approach to suffering on that Rosh Hashanah 2001, with my sister's impending death very much on my mind. She never asked the question why following her diagnosis, a diagnosis which predicted a life of at most 2 or 3 years. But as the Rav advised in his essay, Natalie fought this illness with every ounce of strength and acumen and good medical care that she received, and she actually outlived all the prognoses and enjoyed simcha after simcha in her family before the disease took its final control over her. As I was preparing that sermon for Rosh Hashanah 2001, 9/11 happened. And suddenly the halachic approach to suffering had meaning for all Americans. I never mentioned it in my sermon, but it was on everybody's mind. America never really asked why 9/11 happened. America gave her strength, her military might, and technological power to the fight against the enemy and to the struggle, so far successful, to prevent another 9/11. My next confrontation with evil was on Monday night, July 11, 2011, when Kenny Rockland called me in my car and with tears in his voice cried to me, "Rabbi, stop whatever you're doing and get over to the shul as fast as you can. Something terrible is happening." Minutes later, I arrived at 85th Street and saw the fire and pillars of smoke as our precious synagogue went up in flames. As I watched the fire consuming the building, standing across the street in front of the middle school, I remember being called to the corner of Park and 85th Street. where there were TV cameras waiting. And a reporter asked, "Rabbi, what are you going to do?" I answered with an Alan Brown, Natalie Friedman, and 9/11 religious answer. I said, we have two choices as a community. We can bemoan and bewail what we have just lost, or we can set our sights on rebuilding and reconstructing what we can be in the future. I am confident that our community will choose the latter. I based myself on the Talmud, which says, in reaction to the destruction of the Second Temple, V'yom shecharav Beit HaMikdash nolad HaGoel. On the day the temple was destroyed, the Redeemer was born, meaning out of the ashes of destruction can come the seeds of reconstruction. That is the way I hoped we would respond. And we did. It is with this background of difficult experience that I would like to set forth 3 approaches to responding to the coronavirus crisis, which has created such panic in our country and throughout the world. I have never seen such panic in my life, even after 9/11. When I walked down 86th Street yesterday on a bright sunny day, I felt depressed, and I began to think like a depressed person. The street looked like Memorial Day weekend, with parking spaces available and very few people walking on the sidewalks. I found myself feeling very sad as I turned the corner to go towards 85th Street. It was at that point that I remembered the writings of the Rav. And I remembered Alan and Natalie and the KJ Ramaz community in our collective struggles, and realized that the real question is not how could something like this be happening, but rather, what do we do now? And my steps quickened, and my depression diminished, and I had a new resolve. I start with the Rav's advice against evil. He said, first, you have to fight evil with all the strength that you have. And so I suggest that all of us must fight the coronavirus by following the rules that our leaders have set forth to create social distance between us, even as we unite to confront this physical threat. To practice physical distance, to be Haredi, ultra-Orthodox in our observance of the rules that we are given by our leaders, to be careful to assure that young people who are free from work or school do not congregate in mass activities and thereby help to spread a disease that can kill their elders. To accept the closure of shuls and restaurants and sports arenas for weeks and maybe months as pikuach nefesh practices to save lives and to avoid overwhelming the medical facilities that are available to us. That's the first response. To follow as fanatics the halacha of the land. Second, there is something spiritual that we can do that will help to change, not the facts on the ground, but the thoughts in our heads. We should try to do something and stop dwelling on our losses and deprivations, and instead do things for others to alleviate their pain. Here I would like to base my suggestions on a beautiful essay written by Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg of the Boca Raton Synagogue. You can see the entire essay, which is very worth reading, by Googling Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, quote, "A lesson from coronavirus for a polarized world." I'll repeat that because it's worth reading. Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, "A lesson from coronavirus for a polarized world." It was posted on February 27th. He spoke, among other things, about a meteorologist by the name of Edward Lorenz, who in 1963 introduced what he called the butterfly effect. Lorenz demonstrated that the flapping of a butterfly's wing in Australia can cause a tornado in Kansas, a monsoon in Indonesia, or a hurricane in South Florida. This thesis is part of a greater theory called chaos theory, which postulates that small acts can have large outcomes. The theory is applied in mathematics, programming, microbiology, biology, computer science, engineering, and a bunch of other things that are quite beyond my understanding. Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks applied the chaos theory in the ethical realm. In his book, To Heal a Fractured World, he speaks about the chaos theory of virtue, demonstrating how small acts of kindness can have immeasurable consequences on the world. If one person in Wuhan, China, can spread something that has impacted the whole world for bad, one person anywhere in the world can infect the world with goodness and positivity. We are living, Rabbi Goldberg reminds us, in an increasingly polarized world and at an increasingly partisan time. There are conflicts and tensions between countries, and there are divisions and discord within our own country, among our own people, even in our own religion, and sometimes in our own family. In that atmosphere, the effect of one person on the other side of the world with the coronavirus not only challenges us, but can teach us. Do acts of goodness and virtue. Give more tzedakah. Heaven knows it's going to be necessary in these days. There will be so much more need. Call your friends. Even more important, reach out to people whom you may know may be alone or possibly in distress. Just check in on them. I called an elderly lady from the congregation last Friday because I know that she's housebound, and I wanted to find out how she is and to ask her if there is something I or someone in the shul can do for her. She told me she is well stocked by Amazon. Maybe she's used up some of the things that we can't get on Amazon. And she says she doesn't need anything. But she added the following words: Rabbi, you have no idea what your call meant to me. It was a small thing, but it wasn't small to that woman. I received a call from a woman in shul yesterday, and when I asked, what's the reason for the call? Her response was, I just called to find out how you are. The same thing happened this afternoon when a couple from the congregation called us for no other reason than just to say, how you doing? Dear people of Ramaz and KJ, you are all at home. For heaven's sakes, get on the phone. Make telephone calls. Check in on people. Think about others rather than focusing on our own sorrows. Let us not let the situation control us. Let us affect the situation and improve it with small acts that can have large consequences for others, for ourselves, and for our world. And finally, let us do what religious Jews know how to do best. Daven, pray. If you are not used to praying during the week, start praying one of the 3 prayers of the day. If you are used to praying once a day, pray twice or 3 times a day. We have so much to pray for. And in your Shmona Esrei, please add the special prayer that is found in the Rosh Hashanah Musaf service and in all the services of Yom Kippur. It's found immediately following the Modim prayer and right before V'chol HaChayim Yoducha Selah. The Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Har Etzion suggested in a widely read email that we add this prayer 3 times a day into Shema Kolenu in our Shmona Esrei, just before the concluding phrase of Shema Kolenu. That prayer reads as follows, first in Hebrew, Avinu Malkeinu, Zachor Rachamecha, V'chalei Dever V'cherev V'ra'ov Ushvi Umashchis Ve'avon Umagefa Ufegara V'chol Machala. It sounds like it was written for the coronavirus. V'chol takala, v'chol kitata, v'chol minei foronios, v'chol gzeira ra'ah, v'sin'as chinam. Me'olenu, and then they add 4 words. Me'al, well, no, right here it's just continuing. Me'al kol b'nei v'risecha, and then they add Ume'al kol ha'olam. And then continue, Ki ato shomea tfilah samcho Yisrael barachamim baruch ato Hashem shomea tfilah. You'll need a Rosh Hashanah machzer with you when you daven. In English, our Father, our King, remember your compassion and overcome your anger and remove pestilence, sword, famine, captivity, and destruction, iniquity, and plague, and bad mishaps, and all illness, any harm or conflict, and all kinds of afflictions, and all harsh decrees, and baseless hatred from us, from all the people of your covenant, and from all of humanity. For you hear the prayers of your people Israel with mercy. Blessed are you, our God, who hears prayer. So, dear friends, fellow members of Congregation Kilat Jeshurun, students of Ramaz, alumni of our wonderful school, and the parent body. Here is what we should do to confront this evil. Number one, let us observe all the rules that are designed to fight this virus. Number two, let us do good things and stay in touch. Things that are small but will make a big difference. And let us all pray with great sincerity. And may God answer us all with a resounding Amen.
We'll now take some of the questions, and Rabbi Lookstein will respond. Thank you, Rabbi Lookstein, in advance for this very inspiring and very much needed, comforting talk. We'll just start with one question that came in. How do those of us whose primary connection to Judaism is physical, community davening, Shabbos meals, shiurim, how do we stay inspired, since physical contact and proximity is an integral part of Jewish practice?
My grandfather, whom we refer to affectionately as Grandpa Schlang, and who gave me my love of davening and love of the song of davening and nusach and zmiros, when he would see me davening as a kid, and I was mumbling away the way most kids mumble, and maybe davening more with my eyes than with my lips, he would say to me, as everybody called me then when I was a kid, Hacky, say words. Say words. You know, we always depend on the people around us to give us inspiration. When we are sitting in shul and davening, we get inspired by the physical proximity of others who are doing the same thing. Now we can't do that. So my suggestion to you is say words and concentrate on the words. Think about what you are saying. I know that when I will say this Avinu Malkeinu, and I will speak about Magefa and Pegara and Mashchis and Ra'av, it's going to have a very different meaning to me now, and certainly on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, than it ever had before, because I never saw Magefa. And if you concentrate on the words, it's the same words we say every single day when it comes to the Shmon Esrei, but we are not the same people every day. And we are certainly not the same people now when we are in either quarantine, or if you're older and very much at risk, you're essentially in solitary confinement. If you're lucky, you're in solitary confinement with your partner in life. It's time to focus on what we're saying, to take a little bit more time in davening, to say the words carefully and concentrate on their meaning. And that will make up for the fact that we're not all together in shul and we don't have the inspiration of the Beit HaKnesset, the house of assembly and the house of God. It's really up to us to change our whole orientation for the time being and until we can get back together.
Rabbi Lookstein, how would you respond to the notion that this is somehow a punishment for behavior. You addressed not asking why, but should we be viewing at this time that Hashem is not happy with us, particularly perhaps the Jewish people?
I don't know who sent in that question, but whoever did, it's a great question. As I passed by the newsstand on the street yesterday, a lovely Muslim man on 86th Street and Lexington Avenue who runs the newsstand said, "Rabbi, look at how God is doing this to us." And he proceeded to rattle off a whole slew of things about our selfishness and our divisiveness. He didn't use exactly those words because he doesn't speak English that well. But it was clear to him that this is a punishment. I am not so sure what this is. I don't understand why God does what God does or allows to happen what happens. Maybe in 300 years, we'll look back as religious philosophers and be able to say, it's very clear why mankind, humankind, suffered this Magefa. But I don't think anybody can explain it as it's happening. It's both presumptuous and perhaps foolish. However, the Talmud does say, "Im roa adam yisurim boyin alav yefashpesh b'maasav." If you see bad things happening to you, look at your behavior and try to improve your behavior. It doesn't mean necessarily that because you had not such great behavior, that's why you got clobbered. It means that you have to have a healthy response to tragedy and to difficulty, and in our case, to a plague. And the response is do good things, daven better, give more tzedakah, care about the next person, and let God take care of his judging what we deserve and what we don't deserve.
Rabbi Lookstein, are there specific Tehillim other than what you've mentioned to us in Tefillot to say that you would recommend us saying during this time period?
Well, first of all, I do think that the suggestion of the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Har Etzion was a sensational suggestion. The words are perfect. And they suggest that you insert them into all three Shmon Esreis during the week, every day when you say Shema Kolenu, where you are permitted to ask God for things that are of personal need to you. And God only knows that this is a tremendous personal need. So right before the words Ki ato shomea tfilas amcho Yisrael barachamim, we should say that Avinu Malkeinu Zachor Rachamecha from the Rosh Hashanah Musaf and general Yom Kippur liturgy. Otherwise, any particular Tehillim are wonderful things to say. And the more Tehillim we can say, the better our prayers will reach the Ribono Shel Olam, and it may make us feel better too. In the inability to actually do something to stop this plague, except follow orders, davening and Tehillim are a very, very good thing to do. I would like to close with a Tehillim that most of us know by heart, and I can say it sentence by sentence, and you can repeat it after me. Tehillim 121, which is a very important plea to God. to pay attention to us and to take care of us. Shir lamalot esayin el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha, al yanum shomerecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishon, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha, Adonai tzilecha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai shomer yishmarecha mikol ra, yishmar et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeitecha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. May the Lord guard our going out and our coming in from this time forth and forever.
Thank you once again, Rabbi Lookstein, and thank you everyone for being on with us. This talk, along with many other inspirational videos, will be sent out to the community, be made available to anyone that you would like, friends and family. And as many people put into the question and answer, when will this be done again? We need the continued inspiration. We will continue to offer these opportunities. And I will say out loud, Rabbi Lookstein, I know that people are asking if you would continue to inspire us with words during this crisis. Thank you all for being on this evening, wishing you health, safety, and may we come together for happy times in the very near future.